Hey, what is up, squad? Today we are back with something a bit different. I usually don't do these type of videos, but um, I was thinking maybe you guys want to check out my reaction. But yeah, I'm watching a video on kind of like the latest One Piece chapter 1138, and it's kind of a breakdown video by Grand Line Review. Kind of talks about explaining that final image, and I was really curious. I wanted more in-depth explanation, right? Like I'm not the brightest guy. It was pretty hard to comprehend. Like I got this as like Nika and like there was Loki and like that, but I wanted a little bit more. So yeah. So here we are. If you guys want me to do more videos like this, let me know down below in the comments. Maybe you guys can link some as well. Recommend me some more lore breakdowns of the world of One Piece. I would say because I have been following One Piece for like 20 years now. But usually I don't really make theories or like tier lists and stuff like that. I mean, if you guys want me to do videos like that, then make sure to leave a comment down below if you guys want more of this type of content. But yeah, if you guys want early and uncut reactions, make sure to check out the Patreon and let's get right to it.
This mural and these texts tell the entire past, present, and future of One Piece. I feel like
it is a very complex mural. I'm not gonna lie. Like, where is it? Like, okay, from my understanding, we have Noah's Ark here. We got Princess Shiroshi. This is Loki, right? The giant. Got Nika. All right. We've kind of got the ancient weapon. Is this Pluton? I'm assuming, or I assume it's Pluton, right? I'm not 100% sure. Because it kind of looks like Enel's, thingy-majig. Enel's a battleship as well. So, or maybe it's Uranus. Right, there's a lot going on. We've got Laboon. Got the Minx as well here. So definitely a lot going on, man. I'm not going to lie. And we got the Moon.
I feel like I've been studying my whole life for this discovery. Like an archaeologist who spent every waking moment of their lives, as well as some of the sleeping ones,
break it down for me.
In, say, ancient Egypt, and then suddenly stumbles across the most important historical discovery ever recorded. So we're going to go over this mural and the Harley text as divided. So we'll cover the first world, the second world, and after that, I guess the third world. That's how the text is divided anyway. The mural itself is a little bit harder to divide and decipher. It looks quite simple at first, but it's not, because this is either just a depiction of the first world or the first and the second world, or it's a simultaneous depiction of the past, present, and future. That'll make sense in a bit. But before I go through the mural and more importantly the text, I want to make this very clear. This is just an initial translation, and we do need to not only closely examine the official translation, but this is one of those things where we also need to directly consult Japanese sources. If you're not familiar with Japanese, this is going to be a little bit hard to explain, but it's a language that very much transcends English in the realm of artistry and poetry. Words and sentences very commonly carry double or even triple meaning, and we've run into this problem a couple of times before. For example, I made a video breaking down Binks' sake, and the fact that there is actually no correct translation of those lyrics available because it simply cannot be done. And if you don't believe me, go and watch that video after this one. Let's not be too hasty about leaving this one. But I want to put that out there because we will definitely need to return to this text many, many times in the future to highlight things that we're either missing or we just didn't understand because of our Western swine brains. But look, let's begin with the first world. The earth is engulfed in flame, and the hearts of men burn with desire. They reach for the forbidden star.
Which is the moon, right?
The sun god rose, beckoned by the enslaved. The god of the land was enraged. With a serpent of fire, they cast the world.
Yeah, so there's the god of land, the forest. They were getting mad and stuff.
Into ruin. Darkness fell, death reigned. They would not meet again. Now, the first world text is the most cryptic of all three because it's the one that we know the least about. However, it seems to tell the beginning of the sun god mythos, which is that Nika rose in response to being beckoned by slaves,
understood that part.
The same way that the legend goes that Who's Who heard, which could place the first world within a time period we've heard of known as the Era of Slavery, which was mentioned by Gancho, the Tontada tribe chief, back in chapter 726. I'm not going to read what he said verbatim because he said everything in Tontada speak, so everything just sounds like, oh, it was a terrible hour for all of the slavery. It doesn't quite have the right tone. But we don't know when the era of slavery began, only that it ended due to the events that led to the Void Century, which could mean that the first world spoken of by the Harley text is a hell of a lot closer to modern day than we may have thought, because we're only talking 900 years ago. That's the best guess I have with the information we have. This could, of course, speak of a much, much older time period, but this is where things get a bit thematically confusing, because we see this division of first, second, and third world, and that would initially seem to perfectly fit the trichotomy of Nika, Joy Boy, and Luffy, a sun god figure for each.
True. So you got Nika, Joy Boy, and then Luffy. Obviously 3 different people, right? But similar powers. Okay.
World. And not to skip ahead too far because there's much more to cover in the first world, but the first and third worlds are the only texts that mention the sun god's direct involvement, whilst the second world mentions the sun, not necessarily the sun god, but the sun having been slain. So given that only 2 sun god figures are mentioned in the Harley text, it is entirely possible that the one being referred to in the first world was Joy Boy, not Nika. And that would make sense because the slaves, they're praying to this legendary sun god, so the idea of Nika must have existed in the first world. But Joy Boy could have gone on to be the manifestation of that. He's the one who rose up to end the era of slaves. But that didn't go down very well with the god of the land. And if we look at the mural, we can very clearly see the serpent of fire that the god of the land used to cast the world into ruin. However, right next to this serpent is the moon, and the moon seems to play a very major role in this world. And here's a bit of a wild idea. The moon itself may even have been the first world.
Bro, that means we're getting Enel back soon, right? We have to, right? Why did I say Enel? Inaru. Inaru sounds better. But yeah, bro, we better get Inaru back, man.
That by the end, as said, was left in darkness and ruin, as Enel discovered when he eventually
I know we get the cover stories,
but
I want more.
Of a highly advanced ancient civilization as well as ancient paintings, which are not too dissimilar from the mural on Elbaf. But the paintings that Enel found appear to depict the descent of the Sky People to the One Piece planet. And we do see what could be that event in the Elbaf mural as well, with this flying ship, seemingly being attacked by the serpent as well as the dragon bird-looking creature on the tree. However, I think there's also an argument to be made that this could be a depiction of the ancient weapon Uranus, because there is a distinct light.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is like Inaru's ship or like something similar looking, or is it Uranus? Because
striky thing coming down from the sky arc looks very destructive and not fun, which seems very much like the device we've seen Emu use. However, these need not necessarily be separate entities. Uranus could have been the transport vessel of the Sky People from the moon to the One Piece planet. But this part of the mural also appears to depict the discovery of the Mother Flame, and we are told that the hearts of men burned with desire. So what we have here is this assembly line of people, I guess, mining the Mother Flame and using it to...
People were saying that these were the 20 whatever, the Celestial Dragons.
Power their highly advanced city, which again could be the city that Enel discovered on the moon, or it could even potentially be the Great Kingdom itself, which was also said to be ridiculously advanced. Although within this city, you also see what appears to be slaves powering its system, which is strikingly similar to the travel we saw on Marijois that looked all technologically advanced, like we were in a big airport, but it was being powered by slaves pulling it from below, which is an image that I can't get out of my head anytime I use a traveler. So maybe this city in the mural wasn't the Great Kingdom, or maybe the Great Kingdom just wasn't as great as its name would imply. But the general idea is that these humans reached for something forbidden and were punished as a result. And we do see a figure that appears to be a monarch. There's a dude with a crown standing in a very elephant-shaped, I guess, sea void. I don't really know what this is. I say sea because within that shape is something that is unmistakably the Noah, the ark we saw on Fisherman Island.
Noah's Ark.
Below it, Oda's even paying homage to the Noah's Ark mythology, showing 2 of every creature boarding it from below.
2 of every creature. I did notice that.
Which I'm slightly puzzled by. My guess is that it would be a sky citizen who...
the angel must be a Skypiea citizen, right?
Made it to the One Piece planet. But then, isn't that Joy Boy? It was Joy Boy's responsibility to do the thing with the Noah. That's what his apology to the Mermaid Princess was all about. But I don't see this being Joy Boy. But also, it's at this point that I'm starting to think that this mural may not be divided by worlds, and that this could actually be just a depiction of the first world.
Bro, this is a crazy mural, man. Like, it looks so simple, but it's so complicated, Legit.
Because the whole mural is surrounded by flames, which is the way
Yeah.
that the first world ended. The second world ends with the wrath of the sea god, water and such.
Yep,
So what
sea
we're
god.
seeing here from right to left looks like the era of slaves all the way through to the Void Century War, which I guess
Okay.
would make this Nika-like figure here Joy Boy, and that
Joy
would make
Boy,
a lot of
yeah.
sense given that the figure to his right is a fairly obvious depiction of Emmett. But this is the half of the mural that I enjoy looking at the
Emmett.
most because there's just so many cool details. On the side of Joy Boy / Nika is the aforementioned Emmett, but also a mermaid monarch,
Yep,
a
the
mink,
mermaid
a tontara,
princess.
a Lunarian, and even a bunch
Okay.
of
Oh yeah, Lunarians. Yeah. Why did I not see that?
crazy crap like this whale. I'm not going to go into this now because it's a very long
Laboon.
story. But there is a fairly credible idea that Pluton itself is a whale or a battleship in the shape of
Wait. Pluton is a whale? Where the fuck did that come from? I thought it was just a battleship because Frankie had the blueprints, right?
a whale, or a whale kind of like Laboon, who is now, thanks to Crocus, a crazy biomechanical whale. Although
True.
the most crazy part is that in the mural, the whale is coming from the sky, not the sea, which is where whales traditionally belong.
I actually did not
And we do see a lot of
notice
boats
that.
and even this fish, which is potentially a sea king being summoned by
Sea
the power
King?
of Poseidon.
Okay. Oh yeah, I did see that. The Sea King.
The whale is nowhere near the rest of
I
its
did
sea
notice
friends,
that.
and there's even some raindrops implying some sort of weather control, which may be relevant because in One Piece, a being known as the god of the rain has been mentioned by the
Yeah.
Shandian tribe before.
What about Zoe? I'm surprised Zoe's
So we
not
definitely
here,
can't
right?
ignore raindrops on an
Oh,
ancient
Zanisha, I
mural,
mean.
especially
Okay.
when the Harley text mentions gods so casually. But under the butt of the ancient giant, I believe we can also see some samurai of Wano. They're very
Yep,
adorably
samurai of
drawn
Wano.
with the focus
Okay.
on the sword and the top knot. And above them, we have another ship bearing the now extremely familiar sun symbol that
Sun
we've
symbol,
seen
yep.
all over the One Piece world at this point. What I'm very curious about is that there's no immediately identifiable buccaneers in this mural, at least not to
Okay.
my eyes. At first, I thought that this guy here could have been a buccaneer because he's
Isn't that a
slightly
giant?
bigger than the more normal-sized figures, but it's also likely to be a normal-sized giant because there's a
Yeah.
strong Viking aesthetic about him. So maybe buccaneers are the guys in the boat with the sun Jolly Roger, but because that's the symbol that
okay,
also
that
ended
makes
up
sense.
inspiring the alabaster
That
flag,
is
this
true.
could even be some ancient alabastans and maybe even Nefertari Lily. The other missing curiosity I have is that if this is a depiction of the Void Century War, then
Okay.
we would seem to be missing Zunesha. But the
Yeah.
closest thing I can
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, where is Zunisha on the thing, right?
find again being this elephant-shaped void containing the Noah. And before we move to all of the second world stuff, it should be said that a great serpent has been mentioned before in One Piece. And that
Yep.
would be by Dory and Broggy in chapter 129, who stated that the only thing they cannot pierce is a snake soaked in blood.
Okay.
Which is a very bad translation from early Viz, and they're more accurately stating a great legendary snake, almost certainly a reference
Yep.
to Jormungandr, who surrounded Midgard and became known as the World Serpent. And I guess potentially
Yeah, the world serpent. Is it the how do you say it? Joamanga? Well, I don't even
implying
know
that
how to
this serpent
say
at
that
the end
word.
of the first world created / is
It's meant
the
to be a
Red
snake
Lion,
that can
and it
go
wrapped
around the
itself
world,
around
right?
the
Or
world.
something.
Furthermore,
Like
the
the
god
world's
of the
biggest
land who
snake.
got very angry at all of those slaves praying for the sun god is very potentially Emu, as there's a very good argument that Emu represents Earth in the One Piece character solar system, where all of the
Okay.
elder stars were a planet, the ancient weapons represent the remainder of the planets, and the
Yep.
sun god is obviously the sun. So the only place that Emu really fits in that system would be in the position of Earth, maybe Moon, I guess. However, there's also some pretty good arguments that Emu represents the sea god, which gets
The
mentioned
sea
in the
god,
second
okay.
world. So let's see what happened there. A breath stirred in the abyss. The god of the forest summoned its
God of
devils,
forest,
whilst
yep.
the sun lit the embers of war. Those of the half and full moons dreamed, yet the ones who slew the sun deified themselves, evoking the wrath of the sea god. They would not meet
I
again.
love the cute
So
little
first
animations.
things first, this, to my rudimentary reading, seems to be telling the mythology of devil fruit creation, something that
Okay.
was allowed and
Yep.
nurtured by the forest god. And we know that devil fruits existed during the Void Century because Joy
Yep.
Boy had one, as
But
did
Joy
Amotsuki
Boy does have
Toki.
one,
But
yep.
what we don't know is how common devil fruits were back then. This could have been the very first batch of fruits that were innovated, and then after the first world,
My question is, how did they become fruits? Because, I mean, we talk about devils a lot in One Piece, and it's just like they have to be real, right?
fostered and nurtured by the forest god. If Vegapunk is correct and these fruits do represent the dreams of individuals, then these fruits may be the
Because we got
will and the
summoning
legacy
circles
of
too
those
now.
who fell during the Void Century. Especially since that point on seems to be where those with the will of D are commonly referred to as devils and demons. So after the end of the first world, the forest god summoned its devils. But this is also definitely where I start to question my interpretation so far, because the second world seems to end with the wrath of the sea god, which sounds like a pretty clear reference to the great flooding of the world that occurred during the Void Century. So that makes me think that maybe the first world was a description of Nika. But in that case, I find it interesting that the sun god just isn't mentioned again with the rise of Joy Boy. In fact, the second world is pretty chill considering the fact that it would have contained a 100-year-long war maybe. It is mentioned that the sun lit the embers of war, which could be a reference to Joy Boy, but it also speaks as if it's the aftermath of the events of the first world, mentioning that those who slew the sun deified themselves, which is almost certainly
is like the celestial
who inserted themselves as false gods of the Longest Planet and still currently reign to this very day. And here's what's interesting, right? Because apparently that is what evoked the wrath of the sea god, the blasphemy of the world nobles, which is evidence supporting the idea that Emu is the land/earth god. But it would
because right now we're getting pretty much global warming, sea levels rising, right?
also mean that the world government were not responsible for flooding the world 800 to 900 years ago. If this text is correct, then it would imply that someone else implemented this apocalyptic event, and that would make sense with what Vegapunk said about not judging anyone as either good or evil, because he himself doesn't know. And I, man, on the internet, have just been assuming that Emu and the world government were responsible for the flooding, but apparently that may not be the case. And there's now a chance that the flooding could have been enacted to preserve the world below, so that Emu and the world government were unable to completely destroy it. To, I guess, freeze it in time until Nika's return to bring about the dawn of the world? Although really, I don't even know what I know anymore. The first world, that made perfect sense, but the end of the second...
I'm not gonna lie, I'm surprised that people aren't really using the fishmen to, like, you know, do some, you know, deep diving stuff, right? Like, I feel like after, like, you know, so many years, there should be more than just the Fishman Island, right? I feel like there should be, like, at least other underground or underwater civilization. I mean, the only reason why they're in Fishman Island is because it's the only place with sunlight, right? So, I mean, can't you just create like the artificial sunlight? I don't know. Create the bubbles.
Second world has thrown me a bit. But one line I really like is those of the half and full moons dreamed, because this could be referring to those with the will of D. It's been speculated for an awfully long time now that the D isn't actually a letter and is in fact a half moon symbol masquerading as a D. So if that were the case, then this sign in the second world is speaking about all those with the will of D carrying on these dreams and keeping them alive until the day finally comes for them to be fulfilled, which takes us to the world that we assumedly live in now, the third world. Chaos reigns. The world drifts in a void. Yet time does not erase the memory of the promised day. Its shadow looms as the voice of the half moon echoes through the ages. And once more the sun god shall rise, laughing, dancing, guiding the world to its final act. The sun is reborn, a new dawn will break. Surely this time they will meet. So this text is different right off the bat because the tense has changed. The first and second worlds were spoken of in the past tense, whereas the third world is spoken in the present tense and then the future tense. And it's probably the least exciting because all it really does is describe the world as we know it. Chaos reigns, we're in a state of stagnation, with the legacy of the sun god and the will of D being passed on generation by generation until Luffy comes along and is meant to do something with all of that. It's also...
And it's pretty much where everyone's, you know, kind of forgotten, you know, what happened in the past. Like the clan of D is all split up. They don't really know their purpose anymore, right? Like people don't even know what the D even means themselves. They just know it's the enemy of the gods, and that's pretty much about it.
A lot vaguer than the first two worlds, and I guess that's because it's hard to record something that has yet to happen. What's foretold is that the sun god will guide the world to its final act, but we don't know what that act is.
Yeah, we don't know what that is, but it's the final war, right?
New dawn. However, the third world also ends very cautiously by saying, surely this time they will meet again. It doesn't say they will. It effectively says, mate, I really hope it happens this time because I don't know if I've got a fourth world left in me. And that's something that we should really emphasize. Each of these three worlds Worlds ends with a statement about they meeting. And while we don't know who they are, it's very reminiscent of the words of the Sea Kings that were overheard by Roger and Odin. The birthing is at hand. Our sovereign will soon be born, and in another distant sea, the whales are delighted in anticipation of the day that the two sovereigns shall meet again. We have been waiting for so long. It's almost here, and
this is what the Sea Kings were talking about. Yeah, when Odin and Roger. Okay. Yeah, I remember this. The day.
And surely all will go well this time. Just 10 until birth, another 15 to grow.
So there's one more year, right?
Was identified as Princess Shirahoshi, who has inherited the will of the ancient mermaid princess with Poseidon. And the other sovereign is assumed to be Luffy, just because
I assume it's Luffy,
on the
right?
will of Joy Boy, which takes me back to the idea of the first world being Joy Boy's story, because that was the last time that the mermaid monarch met with the incarnation of the sun god. But there's a lot of assumptions happening there, and also Luffy has actually met Shirahoshi already. So if that is the prophecy, then we've kind of
I just don't think it's time yet, right? It could also
refer to their ancient legacies in some way. Like Luffy hasn't met Shirahoshi after awakening Gear 5th, and it may also have something to do with fully awakening Poseidon. But look, all I know is that the end of each of the three worlds is highly likely to be a reference to the two sovereigns that were being described by the Sea Kings. And it's no guarantee at all that the second sovereign is Luffy. Again, that is just an assumption.
It is an assumption.
Second sovereign could be something like, I don't know, Momonosuke, because he's also intrinsically tied to the
that is
of the
true
world in ways that we don't quite understand yet. And something that I should also get back to is the idea that this mural may not necessarily be linear. It might not just be showing us the past, but the past, present, and the future.
What I'm surprised about is the fact that when Zanisha was talking with Momo, right? I'm surprised that Zanisha didn't listen to Joy Boy. So there's definitely something about Momo that is definitely linked to all this, right? Especially, but then again, Luffy didn't unlock Gear 5 at that time. He didn't awaken at that time. And Zanisha did kind of like, say Joy Boy when Luffy got Gear 5, right?
Because there's a lot of elements that cross over. Like the arc in the sky could represent NL's arc Maxim in the current day, and as I mentioned, there are still slaves working the mechanics of a great kingdom to this day on Marijois. Of course, Luffy looks exactly like Joy Boy and Nika and gathering all of the same allies, so we at the moment have no idea how deep this goes. But there's one more curious part about this mural, which
Frankie being in the middle, right?
A piece which Frankie was conveniently standing right in front of. So sure, this might just be the base of the tree and nothing
people are saying there's a double meaning.
Oda could have also been deliberately hiding a very important part of the story from us, and I wouldn't be surprised if we cut back to this at some point for yet another important revelation. But you let me know in the comments what your mural.
All right, definitely super interesting breakdown that actually cleared up quite a bit for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like it looked so simple, but it was a bit overwhelming when you look at this panel. But definitely really interesting to see all the different people, in the war, in the first world, second world, and third world. Obviously, the third world being simpler because we kind of already know that story. But the first and second world, man, definitely cool to see that and how it plays a role, right? I'm really curious why Zunisha's not in here, and I definitely want to know Momo's link to all this as well, because I feel like he plays a big role. Especially when he has the voice of all things, right? Is what it's called, right? That ability. And why did Zunisha only listen to Momo at that time and not Luffy? And especially when he knew that Luffy was Joy Boy when he awakened Gear 5, right? Maybe there's something different, dude. I don't know, man. Too much going on. Just gotta wait for the next chapter, man. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that reaction. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe. Comment down below what you guys think. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about this mural. There's definitely a lot of double or triple meaning behind this, a lot of lore behind it. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Laters.